Hey everyone, welcome to our Endgame community and new viewers alike. Thanks for watching us. We're here to help you prepare for fantasy football season, and we're here all year long. Right now, we're going to talk about some late round wide receiver targets. Look, zero wide receiver, not really a thing. At least it's not a good thing. But a lot of times you're looking for a really solid wide receiver that you think can jump into your starting lineup. So we're going to look at some guys that are probably outside the top 100 ADP right now, according to drafters.com. We're going to start out with a pretty familiar name, a guy who used to be considered the wide receiver one in all of fantasy for years, and now kind of an afterthought. That's Antonio Brown in Tampa Bay. Chris, do you really think that he can ascend back to fantasy relevance?
Yeah, and I think he did last year, and people just don't realize it. Look, this is a guy, didn't play football for pretty much a year, missed the first 8 games of last season, and in those final 8 games, caught 45 passes, had almost 500 yards and 4 touchdowns. I mean, if you double that, you're talking about a 90 catch, almost 1,000 yard, 8 touchdown wide receiver that you're getting outside of the top 100. That's crazy. And you know he didn't come in week 8, I guess, and he barely played. It took him a while to acclimate to the offense, to get used to everybody. You got to think it's going to be even better now in year 2 with the offense, with Tom Brady, with Bruce Arians. I mean, the only concerns here are the off the field issues, which there's certainly concerns because he could be suspended again. You never know. But if he's not and he plays all 16 games, I don't see how he doesn't just completely obliterate this ADP. And I could see him finishing, as a solid wide receiver 2 by year's end.
That would be amazing if he gets that kind of value outside of the top 100 picks. But look, like you said, that's right. He was asked to come in by Tom Brady. That's a good sign. Jumping in the mid-year is hard. And the fact that they asked him back for another season, that's the biggest sign to me. The fact that they want to see things through, work it out. Injuries happen. A Godwin or Evans injury, and all of a sudden, you're right, he's a solid every week starter for sure. All right, let's move on to a very different situation other than one of the most solid offenses in the league with Tampa. Now one we really don't know what to expect with Philadelphia. Jalen Hurts, a full season him at quarterback, but also a new coaching staff there. What will happen? Well, they got their guy in Devontae Smith, but what about Jalen Reagor? Okay, he's kind of been forgotten about. Remember, he was their first round pick last year, going 121 overall. Do you think he can take that second year leap?
I do. And it's funny how quick we are to give up on wide receivers. Like, you would think if history has taught us anything, and it's taught us a lot of things, don't give up on these wide receivers so early. This guy was a first round rookie pick in dynasty leagues last year. He was a first round pick in the NFL draft last year by the Eagles, battled with injury, battled with terrible QB play. But there's reasons to be optimistic. First of all, I'm optimistic about the Eagles offense in general. I think it's going to be better with Jalen Hurts. I think that offensive line will be healthier. They'll be better. But if you look at the games with Jalen Hurts, especially the last 2 that Jalen Hurts started and finished, not the game where Doug Peterson, pulled him for no reason and got fired. Jalen Reagor had 15 targets in those 2 games. So he was getting the looks from Jalen Hurts. Now, yeah, his catch percentage was, below 60 because Jalen Hurts wasn't super accurate last year, but this is a guy, Jalen Hurts, I'm talking about, that got thrust into the starting role late in the season. He's going to have a full offseason now to work with these guys. I think we're just giving up on Jalen Reagor way too soon. The other Eagle receiver who was also a first-round pick this year, Devonta Smith, he's going in the top, 90, 80 players, but somehow Jalen Reagor is falling out of the top 100. I think Jalen Reagor is a great value. I think he could have a second-year breakout. People are sleeping on him. Definitely somebody you should be targeting.
Yeah, absolutely agree. One thing I love about the time we live in is just if a guy doesn't smash immediately in his rookie season, it's like, yeah, he's a bust. Let's just move on, replace him. Like that's not how it works. Some guys actually need a little bit of time. These guys are 21, 22 years old sometimes coming into the league. He might actually get a little bit better as time goes on. And like you said, no, he didn't win the Heisman. He didn't break records in college, but he was a high draft pick also, and he's had a year to get into the Eagles system. I do think that he could outperform Devontae Smith, and he's going, 30-something picks later? So yeah, I feel pretty good about Reagor at his position. Now, another second-year receiver, you know what? Maybe he's never going to be the guy in Chicago because, they got Allen Robinson, but Darnell Mooney had a pretty nice rookie season. It was kind of unexpected coming out of Tulane, definitely not known for its football program. A 5th-round pick, and this is a guy who was pretty solid and now gets an upgrade at quarterback. I personally am on the Justin Fields bandwagon. I think he should have been the QB2 in the draft. So I feel like he's definitely going to get a huge bump now going into the season. He is definitely locked in as the number 2 target in Chicago. I'm not quite sure why he is going so low, other than that his draft stock, wasn't enough to get people excited.
Yeah, Darnell Mooney has been an offseason roller coaster for me. Early in the offseason, I was all over Darnell Mooney. I'm saying, hey, he was good last year with Trubisky and Foles, and he's probably going to get a QB upgrade. And then they went out and signed Andy Dalton and assured Andy Dalton he was a starter. And after seeing what happened with the Dallas receivers, I started to back off Darnell Mooney. And then they went out and traded up and drafted Justin Fields. And I jumped back on the Darnell Mooney roller coaster, and I'm here to stay now because even if Andy Dalton is the starter week 1, you got to think sooner rather than later, we are going to see Justin Fields. And that's good for Darnell Mooney. And like you said, that he's clearly the number 2. It's Allen Robinson, Darnell Mooney, and then Cole Kmet, Tariq Cohen. I don't even know who the number 3 target getter on this offense is. This should be a very shallow receiver tree, which is very good. So yeah, loving Darnell Mooney going into 2021. And I feel like people are still sleeping on him. I mean, you're still getting him, in the 120s, 130 range, which I think is way too low. So grab him everywhere you can.
And I'll tell you, my love for Mooney isn't just because of Fields. I actually have him in a couple of dynasty leagues where I got him last year. So I've been keeping my eye on him for a while. I think this just helps. And let's move on to a rookie this time, who I think is being a little bit undervalued too. Maybe he wasn't drafted as high as people expected. We kept hearing that Elijah Moore might be the number 4 receiver taken in this year's draft. Well, he wasn't. He fell to the Jets. You know what? The jury is definitely going to be out on Zach Wilson until he proves it in the pros. I'm not as high on Wilson maybe as the other quarterbacks that were taken, but I still think that Elijah Moore is going to be a target hog. And we see Corey Davis and Denzel Mims both being drafted ahead of him. Well, Elijah Moore at 155, I actually think he might wind up being the leading receiver for the Jets.
Yeah, I like all the Jets pass catchers that you just mentioned, but Moore going way too late in my opinion because we know Davis and Mims, they're gonna be the outside guys, whereas Moore is gonna be the slot guy. He's gonna take that Jamison Crowder role, and we don't know how it's gonna be with Zach Wilson, but he has a defined role to targets, and you got to think, I know the draft capital matters, but this is a guy I was really high on pre-draft. I think he landed in a great spot. I think this whole offense is going to be a lot better. I've actually sold myself on the Jets offense, which is hard to say, but they've done some really good things there in New York. I think it's going to be a good fantasy football offense. It might not be a great real life offense, but I think it'll be good for fantasy football. And yeah, with Elijah Moore, the latest of all 3 of these guys going at 155, I just think that's way too low for him. So I agree. Great value here at this point.
For me, it's not so much that I'm sold on the Jets offense. I'm sold on Moore, and he's a guy I think would thrive regardless of the situation. If Wilson turns out to be at least a reliable quarterback, I think Moore will be just fine. So the other 2 receivers, it's going to be a little bit more up and down, but we'll see what happens. It's definitely going to be an interesting year in New York. All right, and let's move on to a guy that we've seen quite a bit already now, not one of these young receivers, but MVS, does he still have some juice left? Look, I know there's a lot of drama in Green Bay. I think we both agree we think Aaron Rodgers will still be the quarterback there. Chris, do you think that Marques Valdez-Scantling is still going to be a guy that we want on our fantasy roster? Because a lot of times he just makes us pull our hair out.
Well, he always seems to be banged up and missing games, but to me, he's the clear number 2 behind Devontae Adams for Aaron Rodgers, right? It's not Quantum St. Brown. That train's left. Alan Lazard, I know you love him, but he's even more inconsistent than MVS. MVS is the guy. And if you look in the 2 playoff games, he had 8 targets and 6 targets. Those are huge games. That means Aaron Rodgers trusts him. Yes, Adams is going to be the guy. Adams is going to be the guy getting like 10 targets a week. But next up is MVS, and you're getting Aaron Rodgers. Like, think about this. We were all excited. People were kind of excited for Amari Rodgers because the Packers drafted him. Like, we just could not wait for the Packers to draft a wide receiver because we're like, whoever is Aaron Rodgers, the number 2 fantasy wide receiver, that's going to be great value. But here we are. his number 2 wide receiver is going at, ADP 179, 180, and no one seems to care. I mean, again, this is another guy, like, I don't see how he can't just smash this ADP, give you weekly wide receiver 3, wide receiver 4 value with tons of upside. So every time I get to this point in the draft and he's still on the board, I'm instantly picking him because I just think it's ridiculous that Aaron Rodgers, number 2 wide receiver, is going this late.
Yeah, that's what it's all about. It's about value. So look, if you're talking about ADP, barely 180. Okay, so you're talking about a last, very late round pick, depending how deep your league is. In best ball, I think it's no brainer. You take a guy like him who could have monster weeks. We know the deep ball is his specialty. So yeah, I mean, I'm a little bit more of a Lazard guy, but he hasn't quite stepped up like I thought he would. So maybe it's time to kind of move on from that. So agree though, MVS is definitely a guy we can't give up on just yet. And then our last guy here we're going to look at is not even being drafted universally outside the top 200. But you know what? There are some Raiders fans who believe that Bryan Edwards could be the wide receiver 1 there because, well, Nelson Aguilar is gone. Derek Carr is still going to throw it quite a bit. I know they have 2 solid running backs, but still, this is a team that defensively is not quite where they need to be yet. So there's going to be plenty of targets to go around. Look, Edwards' rookie year was kind of a wash because of injuries. He just barely didn't play, but very high skill set. Coming out of college, a lot of people think that he could step up and take that wide receiver 1 spot, and I'm definitely among those.
Yeah, I mean, you look at his competition. He's got John Brown, who, John Brown's a nice player, but he's getting up there in age, right? Not the guy he was. You got Henry Ruggs, who's kind of a one-trick, run really fast kind of pony. So Bryan Edwards could slot into that Nelson Aguilar role, and Nelson Aguilar was really good last year and really fantasy relevant. And I don't see why Bryan Edwards couldn't be that way this year. We know Darren Waller's the number 1 guy there, but after that, it's wide open for anybody's job to take. No reason Bryan Edwards can't step forward and take that leap and become the Raiders' number 2 target and number 1 targeted wide receiver. So yeah, for a guy who's basically free in your drafts, why not take the chance? Draft him at the end of your bench if you're in a deeper league, or just keep an eye on him if you're in a shallower league, guy that you should be looking at, on your waivers, keeping an eye on, because if he's not drafted, I think at some point in the 2021 season, he will be a hot waiver wire pickup.
Exactly. So why not spend your last round pick on a guy like that instead of having to fight and spend fab on him, burn your waiver priority. Get these guys now. These are all receivers that are being undervalued or completely overlooked or forgotten. We're here to hip you to them because we want you, of course, to win in 2021. Check out also our late round running back targets. Definitely not going to want to miss that. All right, y'all. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to smash that subscribe button if you haven't already.